I stood in the doorway of our bedroom watching Amanda pack the last of her clothes into a suitcase. 7 years of marriage, and this is how it ends. She was not just leaving me. She was moving straight into Brian's new apartment, the man she had been secretly seeing for the past 8 months. I thought my life was over. Then 3 nights later, my phone rang. A woman's voice I did not recognize said something that changed everything. Before I tell you what she said, drop a comment below and let me know where you are watching from. Hit that like button and subscribe because you will want to see how 2 broken hearts joined forces to make 2 cheaters face the consequences they never saw coming. Trust me, what happened next was better than any revenge I could have planned alone. Now let me take you back to where this all started. I met Amanda 7 years ago at a small coffee shop in Portland. She was sitting by the window working on her laptop, and when she looked up and smiled at me, I knew I had to talk to her. She worked in marketing back then, full of energy and ambition. I was a software engineer at a tech startup downtown. We clicked immediately. Our first date turned into a 5-hour conversation. 2 years later, I proposed to her on Mount Hood during a hiking trip. We bought a modest house in the suburbs. It had 3 bedrooms, a small backyard where we adopted a golden retriever named Max, and enough space for the family we planned to have someday. Our life felt complete. Saturday mornings, we would make pancakes together. Sunday afternoons, we hiked the trails around the Columbia River Gorge. Evenings were spent cooking dinner side by side, or binge-watching shows on the couch with Max curled up at our feet. Amanda got a job at a prominent advertising agency downtown. I continued working as a software engineer, eventually moving up to a senior position. We talked about starting a family. We talked about growing old together. Everything seemed perfect. I had no reason to doubt her. No reason to think the woman I loved would ever betray me. But about 8 months before everything fell apart, I started noticing changes. Small things at first. Amanda began working late 2 or 3 times a week. She said there was a major project with a new client, something that required extra hours. I believed her. Why would I not? She had always been dedicated to her career. Then I noticed she spent more time on her phone. She would smile while texting, and when I asked who she was talking to, she would say it was just a coworker. Nothing to worry about. One evening I reached for her phone to check the time, and she snatched it away quickly. That was when I realized she had added a passcode. We had never kept secrets like that before. Amanda also started changing her appearance. She bought new clothes outfits that were more stylish and form-fitting than what she usually wore. She changed her hairstyle, started going to the gym 4 times a week instead of twice, and began wearing a perfume I had never smelled on her before. When I complimented her, she just said she wanted to feel good about herself. The emotional distance grew, too. Our conversations became shorter and more surface level. She stopped wanting to do the things we used to enjoy together. When I suggested hiking or watching a movie, she would say she was too tired. Our intimate life disappeared almost completely. Every time I tried to initiate, she had an excuse. Headache, long day at work, not in the mood. I told myself it was just stress, work pressure. Maybe she was going through something and needed space. I did not want to be the nagging husband, so I gave her room. But deep down, a small voice kept whispering that something was wrong. Then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday evening. Amanda texted me saying she had to work late and would grab dinner at the office. I decided to surprise her by bringing her favorite Thai food. I drove to her office building downtown, parked in the visitor lot, and walked inside. The parking garage was nearly empty. The lobby was quiet. When I reached her floor, most of the lights were off. I ran into the security guard on my way out, and he mentioned that almost everyone had left by 6 in the evening. My stomach dropped. I called Amanda. No answer. I waited in my car, hands shaking. 20 minutes later, she called back. Her voice sounded slightly panicked. She said she was working at a Starbucks nearby because the office was too noisy. I did not say anything. I just told her I hoped her work went well and drove home. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed next to her, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I was paranoid or if my gut instinct was right. I decided to pay closer attention. Over the next few weeks, I watched her calendar, noticed the pattern of late evenings, and saw how she guarded her phone like it held state secrets. The truth came crashing down on a Tuesday morning. Amanda left for work in a rush and forgot her iPad on the kitchen counter. I was making coffee when I heard it buzz with a notification. The screen lit up and I saw a message preview. It was from someone named Brian, saved in her contacts as Brian, work. The message read, Can't wait to see you tonight. I miss your lips. My hand froze. The coffee mug I was holding nearly slipped from my grip. I picked up the iPad with trembling fingers. It was synced to her iPhone, so all her iMessages appeared there. I opened the conversation. What I saw destroyed me. Months of messages. Flirty texts that escalated into explicit conversations. Plans to meet at hotels. Photos of them together. His arm around her waist, her head on his shoulder. Messages where Amanda told him she did not love me anymore and was just waiting for the right time to leave. I scrolled back further. The affair started 8 months ago, right when I first noticed the changes. Brian was the creative director at her agency. They had worked together on a campaign, spent long hours collaborating, and one night after drinks with the team they kissed. It spiraled from there. The messages were graphic and painful to read, but I forced myself to go through them. I needed to know the full truth. Amanda had lied to my face every single day for 8 months, every late night at work, every gym session, every excuse, all lies. I took screenshots of everything. Then I put the iPad back where she left it and went to work. I do not remember anything I did that day. I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen, numb. My coworkers asked if I was okay. I said I was fine. I was not fine. My entire world had just collapsed. That evening I waited for Amanda to come home. I placed the iPad on the coffee table, open to the conversation with Brian. When she walked through the door, she saw it immediately. Her face went pale. She dropped her purse. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she started talking. Fast. Frantic. She said she was sorry, that she never meant for this to happen, that it just got out of control. I asked her one question. How long? She hesitated, then whispered, 8 months. I felt like I had been punched in the chest. 8 months of lies. 8 months of betrayal while I trusted her completely. I asked her if she loved him. She did not answer at first. Then slowly she nodded. That nod hurt more than anything else. It was one thing to have a physical affair. It was another to fall in love with someone else while still married to me. I stood up and walked to the window. I could not look at her. She started crying, but I did not turn around. She said, I think we should take some time apart. Maybe live separately for a while. I laughed. A bitter, hollow sound. Time apart. You mean so you can move in with him without feeling guilty? She did not respond. The next week was torture. We avoided each other in the house. She slept in the guest room. We barely spoke. The silence was suffocating. Max seemed to sense something was wrong. He stayed close to me, resting his head on my lap every evening. Finally, Amanda came to me with her decision. She said, I think I should move out. Brian and I. He's separated from his wife. He got an apartment downtown. I want to give us a real chance. I stared at her. The woman I had loved for 7 years was standing in front of me, telling me she was choosing another man. I wanted to scream. I wanted to beg her to stay. But I did not. Instead, I said, fine, leave. But do not expect me to make this easy. The divorce will not be simple. She said I could keep the house. She just wanted her freedom. Freedom. As if our marriage was a prison. The day she moved out, I watched her pack her things into her car. She took her clothes, some books, a few pieces of furniture. She left behind the photos of us, the wedding album, the memories we built together. Before she drove away, she looked at me one last time and said, I am sorry, Noah. Then she was gone. I stood in the empty house with Max by my side, feeling like my heart had been ripped out of my chest. 3 days later, I was sitting alone in the living room. It was past midnight. I had been drinking beer, trying to numb the pain, scrolling mindlessly through my phone. That was when it rang. The caller ID showed an unknown number. Normally I would not have answered, but something made me pick up. A woman's voice, calm but cold, said, Noah, my name is Lauren. I am Brian's wife. I sat up straight, suddenly alert. What? She continued. I know about your wife and my husband. We need to talk. The next day we met at a coffee shop in downtown Portland. Lauren walked in wearing a navy blue blazer and jeans, carrying a leather bag. She looked composed, but I could see the pain in her eyes. We shook hands and sat down. She told me her story. She and Brian had been married for 11 years. They had 2 kids, a son who was 8 years old, and a daughter who was 5. Brian had always been a good husband and father until about 8 months ago. He started working late, acting distant, guarding his phone. Lauren confronted him 2 weeks ago, and he admitted everything. He said he wanted a divorce. He had already moved out and rented an apartment. Lauren hired a private investigator. She found out about Amanda, discovered where they were living, and gathered evidence of their affair. She also hired one of the best divorce attorneys in Portland. Then she looked at me and said, "Brian thinks he can just walk away and start a new life without consequences. But I have a plan, and I think you should be part of it." I leaned forward. "What kind of plan?" Lauren opened her bag and pulled out a folder. Inside were photos of Brian and Amanda together, kissing outside a bar, holding hands walking into the apartment building, receipts from hotels, text message printouts. She had everything. She said, "In Oregon, adultery can affect asset division and custody arrangements. I want to hit them where it hurts. Financially, legally, emotionally. I want them to realize that actions have consequences." She proposed that we work together. We would each hire lawyers, coordinate our divorces, and confront Brian and Amanda together. She already knew their schedules. The following Saturday night, they would both be home. That was when we would strike. At first, I hesitated. Part of me just wanted to move on and forget about Amanda. But then I thought about how she was probably living happily with Brian right now, laughing, enjoying her new life, while I was drowning in pain. Anger rose in my chest. I looked at Lauren and said, "Let us do it." Over the next week, Lauren and I prepared. She had already hired a top divorce attorney named Richard Thompson, known for his aggressive tactics in infidelity cases. I hired a lawyer named Jessica Martinez, who came highly recommended. I worked with Jessica to inventory all our marital assets. The house was in both our names, but I had made most of the mortgage payments. We had a joint bank account, which I legally withdrew my portion from, and moved to a separate account. We had 2 cars, one in my name and one in Amanda's. I documented everything. Jessica advised me that because Amanda had abandoned the marital home to live with her affair partner, I had strong grounds to claim the house entirely. She also said Amanda would be responsible for half of our joint debts, including credit cards she had racked up in recent months. I threw myself into work to stay distracted. I hit the gym every morning. I called old friends I had lost touch with during my marriage. Slowly, I started to feel like I was regaining control. Saturday came. At 7 in the evening, I met Lauren, Richard, and Jessica at the parking garage of Brian's apartment building. It was a modern high-rise in the Pearl District, upscale and expensive. Brian had rented a 2-bedroom unit on the 12th floor. We rode the elevator in silence. My heart pounded in my chest. Lauren stood calm and focused. Richard and Jessica each carried briefcases full of documents. When we reached the 12th floor, we walked down the hallway to apartment 1214. I could hear music and laughter inside. Lauren knocked firmly on the door. A few seconds later, the door opened. Brian stood there in a casual t-shirt, holding a glass of red wine. When he saw Lauren, his face went white. "Lauren, what are you doing here?" Lauren did not wait for an invitation. She walked straight in. Noah, Richard, and Jessica followed. Brian stepped back, stunned. Amanda emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron, holding a wooden spoon. When she saw me, she froze. Her eyes went wide. The spoon clattered to the floor. The apartment was cozy and well decorated. There were candles on the dining table, a bottle of wine, 2 plates of pasta. On the mantel, I saw a framed photo of Brian and Amanda smiling together. It felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Lauren turned to Brian and said coldly, "We are here to serve you both." Richard stepped forward and handed Brian a thick stack of papers. "These are divorce papers. You are being served." Jessica did the same to Amanda. Amanda took the papers with shaking hands, her face pale. Brian tried to recover. "You cannot just barge in here like this." Richard smiled. "Actually, we can. These documents are completely legal. You have been served. And we have evidence of your adultery, which will be presented in court." He opened his briefcase and pulled out photos. Brian and Amanda kissing outside a downtown bar, walking hand in hand into this very building, entering a hotel together. Timestamps and dates on every photo. Brian stared at the pictures, his hand trembling. Amanda looked at me, tears forming in her eyes. "Noah, please," she said. "Can we talk about this?" I shook my head. "There is nothing to talk about, Amanda. You made your choice." Lauren turned to Brian. "You thought you could just leave me and the kids and start over with her. Not happening. I am filing for full custody. You will pay child support. And since you committed adultery, the court will take that into account when dividing our assets." Brian opened his mouth to argue, but Richard cut him off. "Save it for your lawyer. Everything is documented. Hotel receipts, text messages, witness statements. You do not have a leg to stand on. Jessica addressed Amanda. Noah is requesting that you either buy out your share of the marital home or relinquish all claims to it. You are also responsible for half of the joint debt, including the credit cards. We have calculated the total, and your portion is approximately $17,000. Amanda's face crumpled. I do not have that kind of money. I felt no sympathy. You should have thought about that before you decided to throw away our marriage. Brian stepped toward me. Leave her alone. Lauren laughed bitterly. Oh, now you care about protecting someone. Where was that instinct when you abandoned your children? The tension in the room was suffocating. Brian and Amanda stood side by side, holding their divorce papers, looking lost and desperate. For a moment, I almost felt bad. Almost. Then I remembered the 8 months of lies, the betrayal, the pain they caused. Lauren looked at both of them and said, You two thought you could just run away together and live happily ever after. But actions have consequences. You hurt people. You broke families. Now you pay the price. I added, Amanda, you wanted freedom. Congratulations, you have it, along with debt, legal fees, and the consequences of your choices. With that, the four of us turned and walked out. As the door closed behind us, I heard Amanda start to sob. In the elevator, Lauren let out a long breath. That felt good. I nodded. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of control, a sense of justice. The weeks that followed were a blur of legal proceedings. Amanda tried to negotiate. She called me multiple times, begging to talk, asking if we could settle things privately, but I had nothing to say to her. Jessica handled all communication through lawyers. With the clear evidence of adultery and abandonment, the divorce process moved in my favor. I kept the house. Amanda was required to pay me a settlement to cover her portion of the equity and was responsible for half of all joint debts. The credit card debt alone came to over $30,000, meaning she owed $15,000. Lauren's divorce was equally brutal for Brian. She was awarded full custody of their 2 children, with Brian only allowed supervised visits on weekends. He was ordered to pay substantial child support and spousal support. The court also ruled that since he had committed adultery and abandoned the family, Lauren received a larger portion of their shared assets. Financially and emotionally, Brian and Amanda were drowning. According to Lauren, who kept me updated, the stress began to fracture their relationship. Brian resented Amanda for being the reason his ex-wife had so much evidence. Amanda was overwhelmed by debt and legal fees. They fought constantly. What started as a passionate affair crumbled under the weight of real-world consequences. 5 months after we served them, Lauren told me they had broken up. Brian moved out of the apartment. Amanda stayed, but she could barely afford the rent. She eventually had to move back in with her parents. As for me, the first few weeks after the divorce were hard. I felt empty. The house, which had once been filled with warmth and laughter, now felt too big and too quiet. I would walk through the rooms and see ghosts of the life I thought I had. Amanda's favorite mug still sat in the cupboard. Her handwriting was still on the grocery list, stuck to the fridge. Some nights I could not sleep. I lay awake replaying memories, wondering where things went wrong, asking myself if I could have done something differently. Max stayed close to me during those dark nights, resting his head on my chest, as if he understood, but slowly things began to change. I threw myself into work and earned a promotion to senior engineer. The extra responsibility kept my mind occupied. I started going to the gym every morning, and the physical exertion helped me release the anger and sadness I carried. I lost 15 pounds and felt healthier than I had in years. I reconnected with old friends, people I had drifted away from during my marriage. We went hiking, fishing, and camping. I rediscovered hobbies I had abandoned. I started playing guitar again, something I loved in college but stopped when life got busy. I also adopted a second dog, a scruffy terrier mix from the local shelter. I named him Charlie. Max and Charlie became inseparable, and having them around brought life back into the house. Lauren and I stayed in touch. We met for coffee occasionally, sharing updates on our respective divorces and lives. She told me about the challenges of raising 2 kids alone, but also about the relief of being free from a dishonest partner. There was no romantic interest between us, just mutual respect and understanding. We had both been through the same pain and come out the other side. One Saturday morning, 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I sat on my front porch with a cup of coffee. The sun was rising, casting a golden light over the yard. Max and Charlie were playing together, chasing each other around the grass. I felt a sense of peace I had not experienced in a long time. I thought about Amanda and Brian. I wondered if they regretted their choices. I wondered if they realized what they lost. But honestly, I did not care anymore. Their lives were no longer my concern. I realized that betrayal, as painful as it was, had also set me free. I had been living in a marriage built on lies, unaware that the foundation was crumbling beneath me. Amanda leaving forced me to confront that reality. It hurt like hell, but it also gave me the opportunity to rebuild my life on my own terms. I learned that I did not need someone else to make me whole. I learned to love myself, to enjoy my own company, to find happiness in small moments. I learned that forgiveness does not mean forgetting or excusing what someone did. It means releasing the anger so it does not poison you. I was not bitter anymore. I was not consumed by thoughts of revenge. I had taken action when it mattered, stood up for myself, and demanded accountability. That was enough. As I sat there watching the sunrise, I thought about the future. Maybe I would fall in love again someday. Maybe I would not. Either way, I was okay. I was free. I was at peace. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the best thing that ever happened. Not because it did not hurt, but because it freed you to become the person you were always meant to be. So what do you think? Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this with someone who might need to hear it. Thank you for listening, and remember, no matter how deep the pain you have, the strength to rise above it. Take care of yourself, and I will see you in the next one.